Now everyone, I want everyone to give a big round of applause for Rania Sabah for her courageous act. And she's going to share with us tonight her experiences inside of Syria.
Good evening, everybody. And thank you so much for being here. Did you all vote?
Yes.
Yes? Well, where I grew up, we had no nominees. There were elections, if you want to call them so. There were only one nominee, who was Hafiz al-Assad, who was the president for 30 years until he died, basically. And when you go to cast a ballot, the choices were yes or no. And you obviously don't want to put a no there. So this is what people in Syria are fighting for. Why am I telling you this? Is because you are the youth. You understanding how the system works in America is extremely important for our future as Americans, and also for the rest of the world. When we live in a country that is the world leader, that is the beacon for democracy, then we have the responsibility, and it's a privilege that we have to have our freedom and democracy, and we should not neglect it. So by you casting a ballot, by you choosing to be involved in the political arena, then you are exercising your freedom, and you're in turn affecting the entire world, which is extremely important. Why is this important to us? Why are we talking about Syria? I hear a lot of people here say that we're not going to police the world. We're not going to be the savior of the world. We need to take care of our own business. Our economy is suffering. You know, there's a huge list of things that people are dealing with in America, from healthcare to economy, etc. So why should we care about Syria? Well, we live in a global world, global economy, global communication, global politics. Everything that happens around the world will eventually affect us, especially when you live in the United States of America, the most powerful nation in the world. So, if I were to talk about the humanitarian side, I can tell you story after story after story of the horror and the torture that people there go through. And you know, maybe I can just paint a quick picture for you. A person may be going through a checkpoint in Syria. He may not even be involved in any demonstration or anything like that. He could be a target by a shabiha or a government agent, security forces. And he could get shot. Now this person is shot, he cannot go to a hospital. This is where the security forces will finish him off. So imagine a wounded person who cannot even go to a hospital. Imagine the cruelty of this regime. When I was in Idlib, in Jabal al-Zawiya, I heard stories of torture that were beyond imagination. People, when they die under torture, there's not a single shot. And they're not stabbed. They die from pain. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm graphic, and I apologize if this bothers anybody. But one of the stories I heard was about this lady whose son owned a store where the shabiha were just trying to basically bully him. And they did for months, and then finally they decided to take him. He had some money and they decided to kidnap him. And they took him, he disappeared, they starved him, you know, of course, in the midst of all the beating. They starved him, and then finally they gave him something, a liquid. He thought it was water, and he drank because he was starving. He took it. It was acid. They made him drink acid, and they poured acid all over his body, and that's how he died. His mom recognized him by, basically he had an operation on his shin bone, and there was a metal rod there, and that's how she was able to recognize him. His father, he served in the Syrian army fixing airplanes for 30 years. He went to check on him before he knew he was dead. They detained him too. They used pliers to pluck his hair out. They made him sit on electric burners. And finally, they tore his legs apart, and that's how he died. I mean, the stories of torture that we hear in Syria are beyond any horror movie you've ever seen or any imagination of a normal human being. It makes us think that, you know, how much suffering do those people have to go through before somebody does something about it? President Clinton, he said his biggest regret is waiting 3.5 years before taking action in Kosovo. 50,000 women have recorded rape. So it's like, at what point do we feel the moral obligation to do something about this dictator? This is the humanitarian side, and I can talk about it forever, but I want to talk to you about what's important for you as an American citizen. Again, going back to the global world, the global politics. Syria is in a very strategic location. You have Iran, you have Turkey, you have the Kurds, you have Israel, you have Lebanon, and you have Iraq. It's an extremely volatile region. The chaos in Syria is not going to be swept under the rug. It's not going to be ignored. It's not going to be something that we're not going to be affected by. The Syrian revolution did not start because people hated the West. It started because they hated the regime in Syria, and they wanted to change it. They started because they shared values that we already have in this country, which are democracy and freedom. They wanted freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, the ability to do and say what you want, and learn and have a good economy and vote. Simple things. They call them terrorist groups. What kind of regime, what kind of president has terrorist groups pop in every single city in the entire country and cannot get control over those terrorist groups? And he doesn't even know. They don't even have a source for those groups. They cannot say they're from Iran or from America or from whoever. They blame Al Jazeera and CNN. I mean, that's the best they could come up with. So for that alone, I think Assad should step down, because he cannot protect his own country from those terrorist groups. But we all know they're not terrorist groups. Those are the Syrian people who have spoken up. And they're all over Syria. And that's why the bombing and the shelling is all over Syria. How does it affect us? When I was there, one thing that I was told is that people there are so desperate for help. When your mother has been raped, when a 6-year-old, actually there was a 10-year-old girl in Homs who was raped repeatedly by 11 different guys. These crimes are beyond imagination. So people are desperate. People are going to end up in a desperate situation. And even though they started the revolution for democracy and freedom and values that we share, people are going to take advantage of Syria. So for example, you would have some Salafi groups trying to gain control over Syria by giving them some weapons, helping them fight the Syrian regime. But in return, they want loyalty. This is not what the Syrian revolution is about. It's not about extremism. I heard from rebels there, and I'm talking about rebel leaders that have about 20,000 people in their battalions. They told me that Al-Qaeda sent members to northern Syria and asking the Syrian rebels to put the Al-Qaeda flag on Syrian soil in return for some weapons. To my relief, they turned them down because, and their answer was, we're not going to pick up a fight with America. That's not what our revolution is about, and they turned it down. But how long are they going to be able to turn those offers down? How many kids have to die before something happens? So how does that affect us? If Syria turns into a terrorist group because poverty, oppression are perfect breeding ground for terrorism and extremism and fanaticism, then this is going to come back and hurt us. We've been fighting terrorism. We have a war on terrorism in Afghanistan and Iraq. We're all over the world trying to fight terrorism. And then here we are allowing this to explode and get out of control. It's important for us to act. I believe for the humanitarian cause, but if that's not good enough, then I think we should act because we care about our own people, we care about American strategic interests, and we do not want this to get out of control. This is really the main message that I wanted to share with you all, and I really appreciate your attention and I appreciate you coming here.